analysis of Japan. Japan is home to about 126 million people. Japan is a complex, dynamic society that has undergone enormous change in the past 125 years, converting itself from a feudal state into a modern, industrialized nation and an economic superpower. In doing so, the Japanese have absorbed Western technology, science, education and politics while still keeping their unique cultural identity. The Japanese have always been distinctly aware of the difference between foreign and native things, and very early they recognized the value of borrowing from others while maintaining their Japaneseness. For most part, the only language spoken in Japan is Japanese. The country is an island culture of almost total ethnic homogeneity. Japan has a constitutional monarchy, headed by an emperor. The current emperor is Akito. He wields a very little political power, serving primarily as the symbolic and diplomatic leader of the country. The political leader of Japan is the Prime Minister, who heads the cabinet. Economy. Speaking about the economy of Japan, is one of the most technologically advanced society on earth. As a result, it has the world's third largest economy by GDP after US and China. Japanese management is based around the principle of group harmony. Japanese managers place less emphasis on giving orders and focus instead on providing their employees with the information and supplies necessary to excel. Some core features of Japanese human resource management include lifetime employment. It is continuous employment until retirement. Results of the recent survey of directors, personnel managers, union officials in 308 major Japanese companies undertaken by the Japan Productivity Center for Socio-Economic Development revealed that almost 90% of the respondents indicated that their companies plan to provide workers with lifetime employment. 82% characterized lifetime employment as advantageous. Seniority-based wage. In the Nenko system, employees who join the firm without any work experience are paid low starting salary but look forward to steady raises with increase in age and seniority until retirement. Recently growing numbers of companies are explicitly weighting ability and performance over tenure and age in salary division. Since the early 1990s, some companies have developed a system of job ability-based wages. Enterprise unionism. They have unions for the entire industry like consideration of car manufacturing industries in Japan. Consensus decision making. Proposals are circulated to all the managers and decision is made under a general agreement. Employment compliance in Japan. It includes the following typical work week hours. Employees usually work 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday unless otherwise stated in an agreement with a union or labor group. Overtime is a sticking point in Japan as Japan has one of the longest working hours. So an employment contract should state the maximum hours of overtime work. In a single month, the number of hours of overtime and work on days off must be less than 100 and the number of overtime working hours per year should not exceed 720 hours. The overtime rates in Japan are as follows. Basic overtime, you get a pay of 125% of hourly wage. Work on rest days, 135% of hourly wage. Overtime between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., 150% of hourly wage. Recruitment methods in Japan. Traditional method is Shinshosu, where companies recruit before they graduate from the universities. Employment offer is given 1 year prior graduation and confirmation is made 6 months later. And also they recruit through recruitment agencies. Generally, hiring is costlier in Japan as recruiting agencies charge 30 to 45% of salary in Japan where it takes 20% in other countries. Hello Work. Japan has a government-run employment agency known as Hello Work with offices throughout Japan. Hello Work offers free support for people looking for work and companies looking for workers. All industries are covered by the agency.
Training and development in Japan is an approach which has historically been influenced by human resource development system. Training and development cannot be defined by technique. It is related to ideologies and philosophies by the culture in which it is been implemented. There are two job trainings practiced in Japan: on the job and off the job training. A common feature of on the job in Japanese companies in a wide ranging job rotation, and they divide operations into production line and the other one as skilled work categories. Japanese are known to be workaholics and loyal to their companies. Managers train their employees by in-house training where they use their own resources to train the employees. Most Japanese companies pay bonuses which are equivalent to several months' salary twice a year. Some of the working benefits in Japan are: employment is stable, education system is in order, earn more money in your home country, public medical insurance is fulfilling. Health benefits and insurances in Japan. Retirement, which starts from 60 years and they are planning to extend as 65 years. Disability pension, workers' compensation, unemployed insurance, paid leaves, maternity and paternity leave. Nursing leave, when a family member is sick and he or she is entitled and can take nursing care leave for 93 days in total for a year. Health insurances. Some of the health insurances are National Health Insurance and Social Health Insurance, where all citizens of Japanese are mandatory to take social health care insurance, and National Health Care Insurance is available for non-residents who stays longer than 3 months in Japan, but it is mostly used by students and freelancers.
I will start with explaining the compensation schemes in Japan. Japan's compensation laws vary by the region or city where your company is located. For example, Tokyo's minimum wage as of 2021 is 1013 yen, the highest in the nation. Japanese employees are paid monthly instead of bi-weekly. Wages often start on the lower end, but workers are rewarded by seniority. Promotions are typically based on a mixture of experience and ability. The nation does not have a mandated 13th month bonus. However, sales employees' commission is often similar to those in the US. Since wages start low, Japanese employees rely heavily on benefits to draw in prospective talent. Guaranteed benefits include a paid annual leave of 10 days after 6 months of work. Employees get a paid leave increase of 1 day per year for the following 2 years and then 2 days every subsequent year until they reach 20 days, the maximum amount of paid leave a year. All employees receive excellent healthcare coverage under Japan's social security system, so many employees do not provide supplemental health benefits. Talking about the work safety in Japan. Employees are required to establish a health and safety management system, including the appointment of safety managers and industrial physicians and the establishment of health and safety committees. Employees should take measures to prevent danger or health impairment, including understanding actual working hours of workers and providing face-to-face guidance by a physician, health and safety training, work restrictions. Only qualified personnel must be assigned to specific hazardous work such as crane operation, implementing working environment measurements in indoor workplace where hazardous work is being performed, and providing health checkups for employees. The statutory working hours are 8 hours per day and 40 hours per week. Statutory holidays must be granted once every week or 4 times every 4 weeks. Flexible working hours arrangements are permissible subject to certain requirements and if prescribed in the working rules or labor management agreements. Compensation for overtime work is up to 60 hours per month, must be at least 25% of the normal hourly wage, and the overtime that exceeds 60 hours per month must be at least 50% above normal hourly wage. Employees in managerial and supervisory positions are exempted from this. The law requires employees to provide annual physicals and checkups to all employees, as well as stress checkups if necessary based on the type of work. In general, employees should budget about 10% to 15% on top of an employee's salary for benefits. All companies in Japan hiring full-time or eligible employees must enroll in all of the social benefit schemes you see here in this chart. Social benefit premiums are split between the employee and employer. And every month, employee premiums are deducted from the paycheck. As an employer, you will have to pay an additional 16% of the employee's gross salary towards employee benefits. Now let's look into the nature of work in Japan. Long working hours. Japan has some of the world's longest working hours. In fact, their working hours are such a significant issue that karoshi, a word that translates as death by overwork. Drinking after work. A form of social etiquette that is integral to traditional Japanese firms is drinking with colleagues after work, or nomikai. Seniority system. Japanese society places strong importance on the hierarchical relationship between a senior and a junior. This principle is one that permeates Japan's corporate culture, which places respect and value on seniority. Group harmony. Perhaps one of the most important values of Japanese culture, group harmony prioritizes the need of society rather than personal interest or opinion. Instead of making decisions based on individual authority, Japanese companies tend to take a holistic approach. Open place workspace. Japan emphasis on harmony between employees extends to the layout of the office, which often has desks grouped together by teams. Rather than having individual cubicles, the open structure of the office seeks to break down barriers between co-workers in order to facilitate communication and cohesion in the workplace. Job stability. Japanese companies believe in kaizen, continuous improvement, so they don't fire employees that often. Even in economic downfall, they try to cut down on expenses instead of people. Talking about work safety in Japan. Employees are required to establish a health and safety management system, including the appointment of safety managers and industrial physicians and the establishment of health and safety committees. Employers should take measures to prevent danger or health impairment, including understanding actual working hours of workers and providing face-to-face guidance by physician, health and safety training. Work restrictionsly qualified personnel must be assigned to specific hazardous work such as crane operation and working environment measurements in indoor workplaces. Some of the major manufacturing companies in Japan. In the electronics field, there are Sony, Panasonic, Nikon, Canon, Toshiba, Casio, Seiko, etc. And in the automobile sector, Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi, Suzuki, Nissan, Mazda, Isuzu, etc. We'd also like to point out some of the regulations about working conditions in Japan. Employers should carry out general cleaning periodically, provide a sufficient amount of drinking water, or provide a certain number of separate toilets for men and women. An employer should generally provide rest facilities outside the workplace if the workplace is extremely hot or humid or emits harmful gases or vapors. If it is necessary to provide workers with sleep at night, or if there is an opportunity for workers to take a nap during working hours, the employer must provide suitable sleeping or napping places, distinguishing between places for men and women.
Hello everyone. Policies on drug restrictions. Japan's drug policy is focused on a criminal justice based approach and overseen by the National Policy Agency, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Finance, Customs, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism. The Compliance and Narcotics Division of the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare is at the center of this system. The division is responsible for matters related to drug of federal and prefectural drug control agents. Japan's drug policy is updated by the Cabinet Office every 5 years. The last update was in 2018 and the strategy's goal is the eradication of drug and abuse. Drug control laws and penalties. Cannabis Control Act, enabled in 1948. Poisonous and Deleterious Substance Control Act, enacted in 1950. Stimulants Control Act, enacted in 1951. Narcotics and Psychotropics Control Act, enacted in 1953. Opium Act, enacted in 1954 Act. On securing quality, efficacy and safety of products, including pharmaceuticals and medical devices, which is enacted in 1960. Employment benefits related policies are Social Security, Healthcare and Insurance, Holidays and Annual Leave, Maternity and Paternity Leave, Sickness and Disability Leave, Nursing Care Leave, Pensions, which is mandatory and typically provided. Visa processing and expertise policies. Foreigners who enter Japan with the purpose of taking up paid employment need a Japan work visa. There are 3 types of work visas for Japan. The regular Japan work visa, which is issued for a number of professions such as a professor or artist. Japan highly skilled professional visa, which is issued through a point-based system and offers a longer period of stay and more benefits than a regular work visa. And the third one is Japan working holiday visa, which is issued to nationals of countries who have a working holidays agreement with Japan.
General policies and practices. The Japanese management is characterized by the features which includes long-term job security, consensual decision-making, slow evaluation, and promotional procedures, and also individual responsibility within a group context. The distinctive characteristics of Japanese corporations are strict hierarchical structures, risk aversion, and obsession. The sense of belonging to a group, teamwork, and the pursuit of consensus are also fundamental. Japanese society is strongly hierarchical. Hierarchy is defined by age, position, company, social status, and it affects all aspects of corporate life, including how people are placed in a meeting and at a table. The decision-making process does not follow a top-down model in Japan. It is based on consensus and cooperation instead. Therefore, decision can be slow and have to be based on deep analysis and information. As a result, policies are often originated at the middle levels of the company before being passed upwards for ratification. In Japan, it is considered to be impolite to introduce yourself even during a large gathering. Therefore, it is always better to be introduced by a third person. Next, appearance. Appearance is vitally important in Japan and people are often judged on their looks and the way they are dressed. Traditionally, the Japanese dress code is formal, which is dark suit, white shirt and a dark tie. In any case, the language and communication style have to be very clear and precise. Business meals are a crucial part of business culture. Re-entry permission in Japan. A foreign national residing in Japan who wishes to leave Japan temporarily within his or her permitted period of stay and to enter and reside in Japan again with the same status of residence as before needs to apply for and receive re-entry permission. There are two types of re-entry permits, valid only once and another one is valid multiple times. Valid only once, which allows only one re-entry into the Japan during the period of validity. Next is valid multiple times, with which one can leave and re-enter Japan any number of times during the period of validity. Enterprise unionism, the organization of single trade union within one plant or multi-plant enterprise. This is followed in Japan. There is a decline trade unions in Japan since 2010. So, enterprise unionism is prevalent in Japan. Any regular employee below the rank of section chief is eligible to become a union leader. Management, however, often pressures the workers to select favored employees. Officers usually maintain their seniority and tenure while working exclusively on union activities. The relationship between typical labor union and the company is unusually close. Both white-collar and blue-collar workers join the union automatically in most major companies.
Separation practices in Japan. In Japan, there is no sudden termination done by any kind of organization because in Japanese culture, they have to work with the company at least 10 years. All the separation of employee only based on agreements by the employer and employee. Voluntary retirement is not encouraged by Japanese law, but that's totally depend upon the boss and the employee. Voluntary retirement should be in fair and reasonable. The age of the employee does not make a substantial differences. But in practice, age could play a significant role since separation segments are subject to employer-employee negotiations. An employee may bring a claim against the employer and seek a declaratory judgment determining that the dismissal is null and void. An employee may also bring a claim for a decision confirming his or her position as an employee by filling a position before the labor tribunal of the commencement of labor tribunal proceedings or before the courts with a request of provisional injunction litigation or by bringing a claim of dispute of litigation. In a dismissal is found to be null and void, the employee may return to the company. An employee may also demand payment of employees' withheld wages or salary of the period since the date of the dismissal up to the time of judgment with interest. In 5-year statute of limitation period applies to claim for wages, retirement allowances and other labor-related entitlements under the Labour Standards Act. Japanese law requires that the termination of regular employment relationship shall be considered objectively, deemed reasonable and appropriated upon social convention, which is regrettably in light of Japanese judicial precedent. Terminations include an employee liability to provide labor due to injury, disability, illness or permanent damage, significantly poor performance or loss of the trust relationship due to the material fraud in an employment, breach of work responsibilities and duties, offer of workplace disciplines, policies and internal rules, the loss of job responsibility or redundancy due to business downsizing, economic reasons for corporate dissolution. All grounds for dismissal shall not be out in the work rules in the employment contracts. Termination due to economic reasons such as redundance in recently restricted in Japan. Japanese judicial precedent has established the practices that 4 factors. First one is necessity in decreasing the number of employees, necessity of adopting the unlimited termination of employment contract, method of a means of employment adjustment, adequate selection of the employees whose employment contracts are not to be terminated, and adequacy of the termination procedures. Importantly, with regards to it requires that the employer fulfills its best efforts obligation to avoid the terminations. An employer shall not dismiss an employee during a period of absence from the work for medical treatment with respect to the work-related injuries and or illness. An employer shall not dismiss any woman during a period of absence from the work before and after the childbirth, not 30 days.